At 3:48 in the morning, on a fog-shrouded stretch of the Caspian Sea, a Ukrainian command cell had exactly 78 seconds to execute a naval strike of unprecedented tactical complexity. Their target was the port Olia Four, a Russian cargo vessel transporting enough critical components to manufacture 200 fresh Shahed kamikaze drones. If their synchronized multi-vector assault succeeded, they would starve the Russian front of its most effective attrition weapon for months, giving Ukrainian ground forces the breathing room they desperately needed. It was a strategic blow so devastating it could fundamentally alter the calculus of negotiations. But if a single element failed, that shipment would fuel a new wave of Russian drone attacks that would overwhelm Ukraine's air defenses, grinding their counteroffensive to a catastrophic halt. The operational countdown started 24 hours earlier when classified intelligence flashed across encrypted screens in a reinforced Kyiv command bunker. The port Olia Four, a 2,000-ton cargo ship loaded with enough Shahed components to terrorize Ukrainian cities for months, had just entered Caspian territorial waters. The tactical problem was immediately apparent. The vessel was surrounded by a $500 million security perimeter of warships and integrated anti-aircraft system. With less than 48 hours until it reached port, a conventional missile strike was tactically impossible. But Russian naval commanders made one critical miscalculation. Their entire defense network was oriented skyward, watching for cruise missiles and strike aircraft. They were not watching the water. In a desperate high-stakes gamble, authorization was given. A civilian cargo ship already operating in the Caspian released a Seababy autonomous attack drone. For the next 24 hours, it traveled 200 nautical miles on silent electric propulsion, a ghost heading toward a predetermined ambush point directly in the projected path of the Russian convoy. At 3:40 in the morning, the waiting phase was over. The Seababy sat motionless, a gray phantom in the pre-dawn fog, its electronic warfare systems fully active. On tactical displays in Kyiv, the Russian convoy appeared as a cluster of infrared signatures, moving steadily into the kill zone. Ghost, execute, the mission commander ordered. From a spring-loaded compartment on the Seababy's dorsal surface, a decoy drone launched vertically into the foggy air. It was inexpensive equipment, but its radar reflector and infrared heat source were precisely calibrated to perfectly mimic an incoming cruise missile signature. It immediately painted a massive high-priority target on Russian air defense screens. Simultaneously, the Seababy's main engine ignited with maximum thrust, abandoning all stealth and accelerating toward the convoy at 50 miles per hour. On the bridge of the Russian Karakurt-class corvette Tuka, the primary escort vessel, the radar operator's blood ran cold. His tactical display exploded with two simultaneous high-priority threats. One possessed the velocity profile of a textbook cruise missile attack. The other was a fast-moving surface contact he could not identify. His doctrine, his training, every tactical manual screamed that the airborne missile represented the primary threat. He had seconds to decide. He was about to make the single worst tactical judgment of his career. Aerial target bearing 090, engage immediately. He screamed into his communications headset. The engagement order crackled to the Mi-8 helicopters circling overhead. The gunner acquired the airborne target and with a roar, a $50,000 Igla surface-to-air missile leaped off its rail, a fiery spear piercing the fog. Every Russian sensor operator was now locked exclusively on this single intercept. But while every Russian eye watched the magician's right hand, they never saw what the left hand was doing. At the exact microsecond the Igla launched, the Seababy's mission profile changed. It was no longer simply an autonomous torpedo. It had become a Trojan horse delivery platform. A concealed hatch slid open and with a hiss of compressed air, 4 nano first-person view drones, each no larger than a shoebox, launched vertically into the foggy air. They hovered for a split second before pitching forward into attack formation, a swarm of angry hornets unleashed from beneath the water's surface. This was the tri-vector assault doctrine in operational execution. Vector 1 was the sacrificial decoy, designed specifically to draw fire and attention. Vector 2 was this newly deployed swarm of 4 nano drones, which immediately split into 2 tactical pairs, flanking the target vessel from both port and starboard approaches. And Vector 3 was the Seababy itself, now resuming its kamikaze run straight down the center line. 3 seconds later, the night sky flashed brilliant white as the Igla vaporized the decoy drone. A victorious cheer erupted across the Russian command network. A perfect kinetic kill. Their celebration lasted exactly 1.2 seconds. On the Tuka's tactical radar display, the single threat icon vanished, only to be immediately replaced by 5 distinct contacts, 2 tiny, fast-moving signatures skimming the wavetops on the port side, 2 more to starboard, and one large contact accelerating directly toward them. The Russian operator stared in absolute disbelief, cold dread washing over him. His $500 million integrated defense system had just been checkmated by a $500 magic trick, and the real assault had not even begun. The Russian captain commanding the escort corvette Tuka did not panic. He was a professional. He barked tactical orders with chilling efficiency. Close-in weapon system. Engage all surface contacts. Launch the Lancet drones. 2 of them. Immediately. Instantly, the entire convoy erupted in coordinated defensive fire. The close-in weapon system cannons mounted on both the Tuka and the cargo ship spun to operational status, their twin rotating barrels unleashing a combined 10,000 rounds per minute of 30mm high-explosive ammunition. It was not gunfire. It was a solid volcano of tracer fire erupting across the water's surface, a roaring wall of lead designed to shred anything that approached. The air filled with the acrid smell of cordite and the sound of spent brass hissing into the sea. This was what a $500 million naval defense system looked like when fully activated. It was absolutely terrifying. The 4 nano first-person view drones were now flying for their operational lives, their remote operators' hearts hammering back in Kyiv. They were flying so low their propellers practically kissed the wave crests, exploiting the one fatal design flaw in the close-in weapon system architecture. The automated cannons could not depress low enough to engage targets skimming the water at just a few hundred feet. The tactical problem was the Lancet drones were coming. 2 Russian hunter-killer drones launched from the corvette's vertical cells. Intelligent autonomous weapons designed exactly for this scenario. They locked onto the lead nano drones, and now it became an impossible dogfight in the darkness. At 3:49 in the morning, the Russian defensive response evolved into a coordinated pincer movement. 1 Lancet to port, 1 to starboard. On the port approach, the first Lancet screamed toward the 2 Ukrainian nano drones. 1 Ukrainian operator executed something absolutely insane. Instead of evading away from the close-in weapon system fire, he flew directly toward it, using the stream of tracers as a deadly shield. He was deliberately baiting the Russian hunter-killer into a fratricide trap. The Lancet, locked onto its target, blindly followed, never recognizing its fatal mistake. It flew straight into the impenetrable wall of 30mm lead from the Tuka's own guns. The Russian gunner did not even realize what he had accomplished. He simply observed a small fireball in the distance and assumed he had engaged an enemy drone. 1 Lancet was gone, destroyed by friendly fire. The port flank was now wide open, but on the starboard side, a different tactical drama unfolded. The second Lancet was faster. Its operator was demonstrably more skilled. It closed relentlessly on the 2 nano first-person view drones. The 2 Ukrainian operators made a split-second, unspoken agreement. One peeled off hard, drawing the Lancet's full attention, while the other pushed his throttle to maximum and sprinted past toward the port Olia Four. The first operator, now tactically cornered, did not attempt evasion. He pushed his throttle to maximum and flew straight at the incoming Russian drone. It was a $200 commercial drone against a $50,000 military-grade hunter-killer, a kamikaze attack. The mathematics were brutal and decidedly Ukrainian. The 2 drones met in a small, violent explosion of shattered carbon fiber and demolished electronics. A calculated trade had been executed. 1 Ukrainian drone exchanged for 1 hunter-killer, and more importantly, for a completely clear approach path. In less than 60 seconds, both Lancet drones were eliminated. The engagement space was cleared. 1 Ukrainian drone sacrificed. But the 3 survivors were now screaming unopposed, straight toward the real prize, the port Olia Four. With the Lancets eliminated, the Russian captain watched in horror as 3 angry hornets screamed toward his defenseless ship. He possessed no high-technology defensive systems remaining, only desperate men with small arms. All hands, open fire. Repel drone attack, he bellowed over the ship's public address system. The deck erupted into chaos. 30 security personnel armed with Avtomat Kalashnikova 74 rifles and Pulamayad Kalashnikova Modernizarovany machine guns unleashed a desperate wall of small arms fire. Tracer rounds crisscrossed the foggy air, turning the final 1,000 feet into a shooting gallery from hell. For the Ukrainian operators, their video feeds became a blizzard of incoming fire. 1 Russian soldier hefted a Degtyaryov Pikhotny 61 grenade launcher. He fired. The 40mm fragmentation round detonated 50 feet in front of the 2 portside drones. One was rocked violently, its camera feed glitching before the operator wrestled it back under control. But the second drone flew directly through the shrapnel cloud. The camera feed went instantly dead. A small victory for the defenders, but not nearly enough. 3:50 in the morning, the surviving portside drone pressed the attack without hesitation. It dove low and plunged directly into the massive churning propeller assembly of the port Olia Four. The tiny 0.4 kilogram shaped charge detonated with a muffled thump. It was surgical. A hypervelocity jet of molten copper penetrated the half-inch hardened steel propeller blades. They shattered catastrophically, and the drive shaft seized instantly. The 2,000-ton cargo ship lurched violently and began drifting dead in the water. A sitting duck. But while all attention focused on the port engagement, they had forgotten about Vector 3 entirely. The operators on the Tuca were watching the defensive chaos, their attention completely diverted. Only when their proximity alarms screamed to life did they realize their catastrophic mistake. They turned and saw the Sea Baby. No longer an abstract blip on radar, but a 30-foot black monster. A dark arrow skimming across the waves now less than 400 feet away, and closing at 50 miles per hour with unstoppable momentum. There was no time to train the close-in weapon system. No time to fire a missile. All they could do was watch as 2,000 pounds of high explosive, guided by relentless artificial intelligence algorithms, slammed into their hull precisely at the waterline. The sound was not an explosion. It was a physical concussion that literally ripped the air apart. The $50 million corvette was not just hit. It was broken over the knee of the blast wave. A bubble of superheated gas instantly vaporized tons of seawater, lifting the 950-ton warship sideways as if it possessed no mass. Then the cavitation void collapsed. The Caspian Sea rushed back in, smashing the compromised hull with brutal force. The keel snapped with a bone-chilling crack that echoed across the fog. A secondary fireball erupted from the ammunition magazine as stored ordnance cooked off. A final brilliant orange flash in the pre-dawn gloom. The bow and stern sections pointed toward the sky for one final defiant moment before sliding beneath the waves, leaving nothing but burning debris and an expanding oil slick. The pride of the Caspian flotilla was erased from existence in less than 7 seconds. Back on the port Olia Four, the final surviving nano drone completed its tactical mission. It slammed into the foremost cargo container at maximum velocity. The explosion was a bright flash of orange fire. The shaped charge warhead pierced the container's thin metal wall, instantly igniting the Shahed drone components and flammable packing material stored inside. A fire began to rage, cooking off sensitive electronics and solid rocket fuel. Flames shot 200 feet into the night sky, casting a ghastly orange glow on the thick fog, visible for dozens of miles. On deck, what remained of the security detail jumped into the cold, dark water, choosing hypothermia over the inferno raging behind them. The strategic dominoes began falling before sunrise. Within 24 hours, the operational situation had fundamentally changed. The burning hulk of the port Olia Four, now grounded and listing dangerously, became a toxic, immovable obstacle, effectively paralyzing all maritime traffic in and out of the port of Olia. Russia's primary sea lane for Iranian military hardware was completely shut down. This forced them to reroute all future Shahed component shipments overland, a slower, exponentially more expensive route. The operational impact was felt 600 miles away at the Shahed assembly plant in Alabuga. Production quotas were slashed by 30%. The assembly lines were starving for components. The expected surge of Shahed drone attacks over Crimea never materialized. Ukrainian air defense units, freed from this relentless pressure, could refocus their precious assets. On the ground, Ukrainian mechanized brigades, operating under clearer skies, exploited the tactical gap and punched through Russian defensive lines, liberating 5 square miles of occupied territory. To truly understand what Ukraine accomplished, examine the 4 distinct layers of this victory. Satellite photographs from NASA's Visible Infrared Imaging Radiometer Suite system confirmed catastrophic losses. 1 Karakurt-class corvette sunk with all hands, 1 2,000-ton cargo ship declared a total loss, and $100 million worth of critical drone components reduced to ashes. This was not just about interdicting one shipment. Ukraine did not just sink a ship. They systematically broke an entire strategic supply chain. The Iran to Caspian to Alabuga route was the express delivery service for Russia's drone warfare capability. Ukraine just canceled that subscription permanently. As grainy cellular phone videos of the burning wreck went viral across Telegram channels, the Russian Ministry of Defense released a pathetic official statement blaming a technical fire during a severe storm. A storm and fog so thick you could not see your own hands. The lie was so transparently blatant, it became laughable. The carefully constructed myth of Russian naval dominance in its own territorial backyard was shattered. This was textbook execution of advanced multi-domain warfare by operators who understood that modern naval combat is about intelligence, precision, and the courage to execute the unconventional. Ukraine just handed every naval power on Earth a masterclass in how the next war will be fought. And Russia just learned that lesson the hardest way possible. Retry,